Hey, it's Don the Auction Professor. Today is Sunday, so it's time for another What Sold on eBay. Again, as usual, I just pick some random items. There's, no rhyme or reason to what I have in here. It's just an odd mix of what we sold. I did not include the clothing that we sold or records, just because, again, they're just items that you just need to be looking up. The other items that I'm showing in here are items that you could run into and give you some better ideas, and they're actually better movers. Again, I've just included some oddball items, just some stuff that most people wouldn't see, and give you an overall idea on what we've sold. It was a good week. As I've talked about, sales are still up way above anything that I've projected. But again, we'll go over to the screen and we'll go from there. Again, we've just randomly picked some items here from what we sold. Just to give you an idea, I tried not to include any clothing unless it was something like a niche or something you could find. Because again, we don't really actively buy any more clothing unless it's a real good deal and it's right there in front of us. But again, I just picked some random items and we're going to show you some of what we sold here. Here's one of the first items here. This was up for a little while. You can tell by the background. We even actually held it, which we don't even do anymore. This one here had a little bit of a glare to it, so it was a little harder to get the image. But this is actually of a mail truck, mail delivery. You can see the whole information on there. Somebody could track it down probably by the actual information on the route and the whole works on it. But I took 25 on this one. It'd been up for probably 2 years, so we've got about $1.20 into listing it. I bought this in a big lot of stuff, so I've probably got a quarter or something into it, if even that. So, it's worth $1.20 to list it for 2 years to, get back 20 plus in profit. So anyway, and again, as I talk about, most items are a longevity game. You're playing for residual income on most of these items. So just keep that in mind. It's a numbers game too, so you have to have enough up to be able to do it this way. So, and we've got over 40,000 up, so for us it's not a big ordeal. We can wait on almost anything to get the money back later on. I never rush to sell something. That's usually how you lose some of your profit margin, if you rush. And again, our costs into most of our items are horrendously low, so our profit margins are huge. But let's move on to the next item here. I bought a bunch of just junk toys not too long ago, a month or so ago. I might have shown these, I don't remember, in a haul video, but these are just like game pieces, and we got 15 bucks out of them. And I have literally nothing into them, just a few pennies, if even that. So a good item. These are from the 50s, some Pony Express game or something along that line. Person was very happy, paid immediately on these. Let's see here. Again, this is something that was up for a little while. All these little books, I probably got about, say, 90 cents or so into listing this, maybe $1.20. And then we took 15 out of it. So who knows what stuff's worth or how long they'll take to sell. But that's still a $10 profit after all said and done, all fees, all labor and everything. So you can't go wrong when you're doing that. And there's no sense in me taking, let's say I put this up for one cycle or something. I spent $1 on it. I put it up to list it once. I spend the 5 cents or whatever it's costing you to list the item. It doesn't sell, so you mark it down. You run it a second time, so now you've got 10 cents into listing it. And then it still doesn't sell, and then you trash the item. That's what most people do. That's why even sometimes when other sellers sell stuff or get rid of it when they can't sell it the first time or two, I'll still make a good profit on it because I'm not in a hurry to get rid of anything. By doing that, you're killing your profit. Most of this kind of stuff is a long-term tail on it. You're going to have to hold it up and have it up there for a while to sell. But it does sell. That's why I say most everything I have up is a good item. We've researched it. We know it sells. It just doesn't sell quick for the most part. Some items always sell quick, and we still, make a ton off of those as well too. But everything isn't a quick turnaround. You can't look at it that way. You've got to invest some time and energy into listing things and letting them ride for a lot longer than you've been doing in the past, because that's how more stuff will sell. Clothing may be a different story. The longer you have it up, the more competition you can have. There's just so many other factors when you do clothing or other areas. That's why we pretty much now just stick to collectibles, antiques, and toys and things along that line. Let's see here. This is just basically a piece of paper advertising a shoe company. I had a bunch of these. Average price, I think I took 15 on this one. The average price has been 10 to 15 bucks on these. I sold one or two for 20 or 27.50 if I remember right. But I picked up a bunch of these. This came from a closed down shoe business that had been around for like 100 years. It was a ma and pa place, and I go to those. Who is going to think about going to a liquidation sale at a shoe store and make money? And most people wouldn't. It's a shoe shoe repair store is what it was. And, I know enough because some of the tools and some of the equipment to do repairs on shoes cost money. There's something that's going to sell. And sometimes I end up with paper that they had on the walls or they kept in collections because their family has done a shoe repair business for, 110 years or something along that line. So, and there's all kinds of businesses that's this kind of thing happens, that they'll have, collectibles in their store for decades and decades and decades because it was a family business. So just an FYI there. This person here bought $50 worth. He bought 3 cards. I took 20 on this one and another cat palette card just like this. Nothing fancy, nothing special. It's for an organ and a sewing machine salesman's company. Nothing fancy again. So, these are just common cards. You have pennies into them. Nice item, nice clear, everything around it looks nice. This was out of a collection. I actually pulled these out of the clear vinyl paged book, like a modern one, that somebody had collected these. So somebody bought these, who knows where they bought them at, and then I got them from a picker who bought the whole book, just like a brand new, like a postcard book almost. Let's move on here. This person here who bought this one had made an offer before. I countered at $57.50, and this was months and months ago. This has been up for like 6 months, I think, and he made an offer the first month or something. I countered at $57 with his like $30 offer, and now he just offered $50, so I took it. So it's only a few bucks less than I wanted to get out of it. And it took a while. Again, this was up again since the first time he made the offer. This has probably been up for another 4 months. So he probably realized it wasn't going anywhere and made the offer. That's, again, why I don't always take any lowball offers. That's why I'll let these ride. This was $1 or $2 probably into this. This came out of a postcard collection. And some people even think these are postcards. That's why I can get these like that. So that is another source. You got to look at quantities to find this kind of material. I look at tons and tons of stuff. But you can start anywhere. But again, I look at tons of stuff, so it's quantity of finding stuff that I can find many things like this. Plus, I've done this for a while, and I have my sources. There are other people now that are finding those, so the sources are out there. Anybody can do it. It just takes some diligence. But again, $50 I sold that one for. And I've talked about camera equipment. I sell a couple camera pieces every single week since I've got this last large lot. And I've sold a ton of these. These don't look like much. This is something you can even find at Savers on occasion. I found some at Goodwill. These are Graflex plates. The film goes in there. You can load 5, I think, in these. Some hold 10. Some are thicker. Some hold, larger size 5x7s. Those always sell for more. I took 30 on these. Someone from France bought these. The last 3 or 4 groups of these went overseas to France or England. And they spent $36 to send these over U.S. Priority 2 on top of that. So, I'm fine with the $30 profit. I have nothing into these, literally. The lot was paid for the day I got it by selling 1 lens. So anyway, let's move on here. I've got still quite a few items. This one sold $14.50. Again, the missions in California aren't big sellers. There's a few that sell fairly regularly, but if you research it, the Carmel mission, these don't sell for very much. The last 2 or 3 sold in the $8 range. I put higher on, as I always do, and it did sell for $14.50. It's eye appeal. It's like window shopping. They'll see this going through my store. So anyway, fabric too. Here's another thing. Bolts of fabric. I buy fabric, unused fabric and reams and bolts all the time. And I mean all the time. I've bought a van load full before and was able to sell it on eBay. You can't ship most of those through the post office unless you take them off the big cardboard tube that they come in, the big cardboard sleeve thing. But if you take them off, you can usually box them all up and put them in a box and mail them that way. But if I keep them on the ream, I mail them like UPS or something. We have an account with all the major shippers, so no big deal. But this sold for $57.50. I had 3 panels this big. I've sold 2. I have 1 more up, which you can look as well yourself too. 1 more up at that same price, and it's just a nice sheet of very fine quality fabric. And I paid $2.99 for a huge ream, and I cut them up into about 1 yard of each. Or about the same measurements is what I did. So, you can cut them up if you get a huge one, and people will buy them by the yard or whatever the case may be. You can sell them all together, and, your profit's a little less when you sell it in one big roll versus cutting them up and selling them by the yard. So just FYI on that one. Good sources to find these. You just got to hunt. There's closeout places. There's, remanufactured places. There's manufacturers closeout bin sales and things like that. You got to look around for places or for things like this. Rarely you can find them at Joann Fabrics. I find them at thrift stores most of the time. There's Goodwill around here that always ends up having these. I don't know if there's a sewing shop nearby and they just always donate the same type of things, but I do run into this all the time, and we do sell a couple a month all the time on this type of item. Again, it's just fabric, unused fabric, uncut straight from a roll or a bolt. This one I wanted to pull up here. We sell a lot that have calendars on them. Most of the calendar related cards sell, whether it's a postcard. I would say this is a bolo, I guess you could say. Anything like this, printed like this, if it's like a postcard sized, and it has a calendar on it, sells. And this is an 1889 calendar card. But I always put the word calendar in the title, even if it's like a month, it just has 1 month on it, on like a postcard. You usually get $8 or $10 for the calendar ones across the board or higher. So that's just how it works with these two. I took 15 on this one here. I've sold, I don't know, half a dozen of this very same card in the last year, since the beginning of the year, January. So that's about one a month, or just under one a month of just the same card. This is something that'll show up in postcards again, and a lot of the time people won't even realize this isn't a postcard. But let's move on here. This one was up for like 2 hours. Now I looked at, there was probably 6 or 7 of these on there. Not one had sold because they put 95, 100. One person I think had 125 on the same card. I know enough about the cards to know that this isn't worth that much. This is a $30, $35 card when they sell, and that's records that I have personally seen. I put almost double that. I put $57.50, which was under one of the other lowest sellers. I think the next one up was like in the $75 range. Didn't sell, of course, and he had it relisted and relisted and relisted and relisted. You just got to put the right price on it too sometimes, and then a zoom in helps a little bit too. This one was one of my employees, so I'll have to kind of maybe adjust that a little bit. But again, this one sold right away, just a couple hours. A nice image, nice train one, and I had a couple from the same company, so they do sell well too. Anything train related, and again, it sold right off the bat, $57.50. So let's move on here. This one was bought by the great-great-grandson of this Emerson guy. He's one of the family descendants, and he tries to collect the cards. Again, I've talked about this before. I saw a lot of these early cards because it's a family member, their great-grandmother, great-great-grandfather. Somebody in their family is related or owned this company. And I saw a ton of items like that, a couple a week, every single week. Every single week I saw stuff like this just because a family member owned it. So a lot of stuff, it doesn't matter what it is, it just matters the name, and you have to kind of keep that in mind when you do this stuff. And even if it wasn't for the name, the content is farming, so it's a given that this one should sell for something decent. It's got a nice Middle Eastern scene on the front, an oasis. It's a nice looking card. But let's move on here. I've talked about the postcards, and specifically malls in California. I've sold every Concord mall, and I had a whole bunch of these at one time, maybe 20 of these, including some dupes of them. This is the last one. In 2 months, I've sold every one of those 20 postcards, all relating to California malls. Concord specifically were most of them, but they all sell. Vintage shopping mall cards sell from wherever they're from. I always sell this, especially like these chromes. This is a photochrome, so this is what I've talked about in the past on photochromes. This is one of them. But let's move on here. This is just a Kennedy promotional 20. I think we took $22.50. Yeah, $22.50 on this one. And I had this one up for about I don't know, 90 cents worth of listing it. So again, who cares if it's up for a while? I made a huge profit. I paid a couple bucks for this, maybe $2. Let's move on here. I've talked about these before too. We cast some of these as well too. Nothing special here, but I do sell them religiously. This is just a handful. This is a small amount of these, $7.50 a shot. So it's a big time profit. I've got nothing into these because we bought a huge lot of these by the pound for almost nothing. And I mean, I've got thousands of these. Plus I've got metal, and we have cast our own, as I said. But let's move on. I think I might even have shown some more. Now, this one was up for a while, but I sell a couple dust jackets almost every single week. This month we probably sold a dozen or more just dust jackets. So one selling pays for everything we got up that month. So the other 11 are profit. And again, these were paid for months and months and months ago. So good seller for us. I'm not taking the stuff down. I let it ride, and we keep getting income on it. To decide if you're going to take it down, what you got to realize is when it's not making money and it's not paying for itself. Let's say I listed it for 10 years and I've got so much into it and the item's only $5, it just wouldn't be worth it. Or let's say even 2 years, you've got $2 into it, you paid $1 for it, it may sell for $3. There's no sense in keeping it up to possibly make 50 cents after fees. Just like I've had a lot of people ask, why do people list stuff starting at 99 cents? You know, there's just no rhyme or reason to it. Back in the day, I've talked about this before, it used to be able to work that way, but nowadays nobody cares whether it's 99 cents. I'd rather just buy it outright and be done with it for the most part, honestly, whatever the item is. But let's move on here. Again, more of these. This is just 4 of them. Another $7.50. We split these up into little lots. I try to group like items together, and we sell them constantly. Every single week, I sell at least one of these a day, one of these lots every single day of the week. I've got a ton more to list, and I mean a ton. Probably got 300-400 more listings of these to do right now. So anyway, let's move on. Roller skating rinks, again, we're still selling about one every day of the week on these. This one sold for $20. Again, I take whatever. I take offers on them. I'm not really concerned. I've got nothing into most of these. Real picture postcards. This is a fairly common card. Average price on this is like $8, $9. I got $14.50. Again, I research everything, so no worries here. This is like a program booklet. I had this one up for maybe a year, almost 2 years actually, I think. Yeah, right about 2 years. So I've got $1.20 in a listing it. I got a 55 cents. You can actually see the price still on it. Well, on the cover actually. 55 cents. So I've got nothing into it, and I made a good $10 plus profit on this after that length of time. So again, I don't take stuff down just because it doesn't sell for a couple of years. It's a numbers game, and it's longevity. You got to be worried about residual income as opposed to a quick turnaround and what's going on now. I look at the big picture in everything, including every item I have up. Tobacco labels. I sell something tobacco related every single day of the week, every week of the year. So this is a big mover for us. I buy it all the time whenever I have the chance. Just be careful on what you buy and do your research. This one's even damaged, and I took $27.50 I got out of this one here. So, and it's even got a rip on it there. But some of these are really rare. This is scarce. 1880s, 1890s. These can easily be dated. I've given you the site that you can go to price these as well, and the information you need to price these. So again, you just need to check out one of my other videos for that one. I've got roughly 200 plus videos up right this second. So gives you a lot to look at and a lot of ideas and ways to go to research items. This is a wine label from Germany. I bought hundreds of these. I spent like $1,500 on a big, huge collection of these. We sold a couple right off the bat the day I listed them for over $400 a piece. I sold one for $750 on its own. There were some beer ones in there, including a few Americans. The American beer labels were from the 1880s through like 1900, and we averaged price on those $400 or $500 a label. So that $1,500 investment on just these labels netted us like $6,200 in the first month in profit. So, you know, things like this, you got to be able to invest that type of money. $1,500 was nothing to us to invest in this. It was a piece of cake. It was an easy buy without a care in the world or worry in the world, because I knew what I had. I knew how rare and how good they were. And to the person I bought it from, he got a ton of money out of it, and I mean a ton. He paid almost nothing for it. So he made $1,000 off of me just for doing nothing else than paying a few bucks up front and then walking it to me. That was all he did. So, you know, he made $1,000. I made a ton more, but I did the legwork. I did all the research. I did all the listing, and spent the labor on it. So, you know, it's a give and take with this market and what we do. But let's move on here. A lot of these oddball places, like this is the Clam Box. This sold because of what it is. It's a tourist attraction. It's on a highway out in the middle of nowhere. I don't think it exists anymore. It's Long Island, so it was a decent item. And I wasn't really worried about what we took on this one. This one was up for a while. I think we got like $20 or something out of this one here. But let's move on. This was up for like 2 years. Again, I've got nothing into it. The Kermit the Frog came from a bag at a checkout at some thrift store, I would imagine. So I've got pennies into that, and the cup was like a quarter somewhere. I bought a bunch of these at one time. It's probably the last one I have up actually at this point. And I got $1, say 60 in a listing it. I sold it for $14.99. And I've got, you know, maybe with listing fees and everything, I got $2 invested into it, minus the final value fee. So I made $10 profit for doing nothing again, forgetting about this item. I listed it and then I forgot about it. As long as you know and keep everything organized, it doesn't matter if it sits forever. It still sells, even if it's been up for over 2 years. This is a good example. I very rarely have to take anything down. I just alter titles or change the photos a little bit. And again, I've shown you how to alter photos. You don't have to even take new photos. You can mess around with the photos you have now without doing anything else. But let's move on here. These are actually damaged cards. These are torn up, ripped up cards. There's 2 of them. Very rare subject matter. These are for a circus sideshow event. Fairly scarce. Again, this one's missing the entire top of the card. And this one here, as you see, is missing, big chunks. I had a real low ball offer for 10 on the very first day within a couple hours. I turned down. I countered back at, I think, 20. And before I could even get that sent, somebody else sent in an offer at $24.50, and I ended up selling it at $24.50. Again, these are ripped, damaged partial cards, so you have to know some subject matter. You won't find comps on these anywhere, but I have enough knowledge and experience to doing this to know exactly what that is. There's on the back it talks about the century plant. My grandmother had a century plant that she inherited. It was brought over from Germany. I know what the century plant is. It only blooms a very rare occasion. I've seen this one bloom when I was a kid once in my life. It actually went to a museum after my grandmother died, and it is still at the same museum in Michigan as we speak. So I do know something about what this stuff is a little bit. So anyway, you got to know something, and this wouldn't be found, the information for what this is, on eBay for the most part. So just keep that in mind. There are other sources, and Google searches will pull up this type of information. But let's move on here. Now this one, I'm not going to consider this really a piece of clothing. It is, but it isn't. This was in a haul. I picked up a ton of these silk scarves you can pick up really dirt cheap, sometimes a quarter at church sales, or a big box of these, hundreds of these sometimes. And this one dates to like the 40s or 50s. Average price on these is $8 to $10 is what you can get every day, all day long on most of these, if it's a good graphic visual one. And then they go up from there. I've sold some of these scarves for $75 or better. I think I've sold one like a Peter Max for $125 or higher too. So, there's mod, there's psychedelic. This is one of those little niche areas that you can find. If I run into these, I'll buy them. I don't look for them. But if they walk up on me or I see them, I'll buy them. And I also buy the vintage 30s and 40s silk aprons, ladies' kitchen aprons and things, because those sell the same profit margin as these two. Nothing into them, you make a decent profit. I'm $8-10 a shot. This is like the bread and butter. It's not a huge profit, but you sell them, and you sell them all the time. Let's go on from here. Roller skating labels again. This one, I have sold at least a dozen of this very same one within the last, just say, year and a half of this same one. So about one a month or just under one a month. This one sells because of the Coca-Cola bottle in her hand, and it always sells. This one's shown in catalogs and price guides, specifically talking about stadiums, Coke, and roller skating in general. So anyway, this person bought 2 at the same price. He spent $34.50 full price, which is the highest I have sold, and the highest one of these has ever sold that I can find as well too. But let's move on. Here's the other Riverside Stadium. I believe he was from DC, and that's why he bought these. But anyway, good seller, another $34.50. So right off the bat, there's $70 from one person for 2 labels that I got $1 or so into. But move on. Playing cards. Now this I bought. This came from an antique store. We were out of town. We were traveling. We went and ate lunch at a restaurant, and there was a antique mall or something right next door to it. So we went over there and walked around on the way out. We were just leisure. I wasn't expecting to find anything, but they had a box of 1910-ish, 1915 playing cards that were movie related out of the box, just with a rubber band around him, and he wanted $10 for them. I offered him $5 and walked out the door. Inside there, I pulled out Charlie Chaplin. I think I got like 60 just out of the Charlie Chaplin, and then I've been averaging, when I first listed them, I sold a bunch right off the bat, and then we sell 1 or 2 every couple weeks. And I average like $4 or $5 a card. So out of that playing card set, and I think there may even been 1 or 2 missing. I think that was why I got it for $5 versus 10. But we've made hundreds of dollars out of this box. So just another example. I wouldn't sell it as a set of cards if they were movie star related, because these are now considered trade cards at this point. But let's go on here. I'm going to throw this one out here again because I talk about this one all the time. I've sold dozens and dozens of In the Mood by Glenn Miller. It is the #1 record in the swing era that you are going to find that should sell and you should be able to make some good money on all the time. After I showed this in another video way back a month or two ago, I had several people who contacted me, said they found it that same week and actually sold it immediately. That's a fact on this one. In the Mood, Glenn Miller always sells. It sells high. If I don't sell it here, I think I took $47.50 on this one. It'll sell on Amazon just as quickly too. This one I had put up on eBay. It sold just in a couple days, and I didn't even have time to pull up my cross promote list to list this on Amazon. I had to pull it down before it even hit Amazon. That's how quickly this one sold. And I've showed this one many times before. You can look at comps. Don't be scared off if you see them only selling for 10 or 15 bucks. If you put them up for 45 or higher, you're going to sell them for 45 or higher. Just a fact. That's how we do it. And I know how to judge records. I know how to grade records. I'm not putting a VG or, you know, the standard grading for like a 45 or an LP. Use the standard grading that would be used for 78s, and people will take you seriously, and you'll sell them for a higher percentage of profit. And again, I got $1 into this record. So my profit margin on this is horrendous. But let's move on. Again, I talk about labels. The person who bought this one bought a bunch of labels from me. I think I let him have all of them for 10 bucks a piece. You know, at this point, who cares what I get out of these? These run average like 6 to 7 bucks is what most people sell these for. You can look up the comps. That's not just me throwing out a number. I've researched. I looked these up. I put higher on them as a bin, and I always seem to sell them for a higher amount than everybody else. So anyway, let's move on. Again, feedback, my top rated plus, all that plays into this. I don't care what anybody else tells you. eBay tells you that helps. So I can guarantee you it helps having top rated plus, having, you know, free returns, having, you know, positive feedback. The whole works. It's all a given. But let's move on. Now, this is Godfrey Keebler. Now, for those of you who don't know who Godfrey Keebler is, he founded the Keebler Elves, the Keebler Company. He made the cookies back in the 1870s and 80s. I knew the name immediately. I've researched some of this, even for newer items, because even stuff from the 40s from Keebler sells very well. So I do pay attention, and I do research all of these items, and this is a perfect example. Most of these aren't huge sellers, but you're going to run across, and you'll have somebody come by and buy a bunch at top dollar. And this is what I sold it for, $34.50. It was up for 2 whole days. But we have others of these. I sell them. I don't list a bunch all at once, but these sell constantly. It's like a Keebler elf historian will collect these. I put elves in here. It has nothing to do with the card visually, but that is what it is. Somebody bought this because it's Keebler elves, and it's Godfrey Keebler. He's the founder of the Keebler Company. So anyway, just some interesting facts. You'll find Levi's jeans trade cards that are actually in the shape of a pair of jeans from the same era, $300-400 card. You'll find Coca-Cola cards from back then, $300-400 cards. You know, RCA Victor, 1898, 1901 cards. All the stuff that's modern, or a lot of stuff that's modern, you'll find vintage versions of it. Standard Oil Company, I mean, just on and on. The earlier stuff from the same modern companies always sells. So, John Deere cards. I sell every John Deere card I put up for decent money. Perfect example. But let's go on from here. I've just got a few more left. Okay, and then I've got these here. Now, I'm not big on ceramics. I was glad to move these. I bought a huge collection of dog ceramics for almost nothing. So when I already made a ton of money, there was a couple Hummels in there. There was some early German items and stuff, and we made a ton of money, as I said. This one's sat. I wasn't going to lower it too much. We took 65 on this, and these are the spaghetti style, and they always seem to sell. It just takes a little while on some of these. I could have lowered it down drastically, but I didn't even bother marking it down because, again, it's a key color. It's pink. It's from, you know, mod 50s. It's mid-century. It's a good item. Again, we took 65 on it, plus they paid shipping too. So anyway, let's go on. I've talked about the magazines. Again, another magazine, $10.49. Again, they're not huge high dollar movers, but we pay $1 for them, and I sell a bunch of them. We sell magazines all the time, at least probably one a day or more across the board on these. I'm not rushing to get them out. I'm not rushing to do anything like that, but for the $1, I sell it for $10.49. I'm getting $8 back profit right off the bat. Nothing else to worry about. It was up for 2 or 3 months. I even showed this in a haul a couple months ago. This is a label. The person who bought this actually owns a gun that was bought at this place. He has the paper actually from the gun that says it was bought here with the receipt and the whole works, and he wanted this to go with a lot. I let him have it for 15. It was up for maybe 9 months to a year, so who knows what it's worth. There's nothing to compare it to. If somebody wants it for 15, I got nothing into it, pennies if even that. But again, this is just why stuff sells sometimes. It sells for odd reasons. So I never worry about what it is anymore or what type of material. Any type of thing like this seems to sell. And this is, again, just a paper label that would have been stuck on something else, for sales. And I have a bunch of these. Or not a bunch, but I've got a few more of the same exact label. I'll buy stuff in quantity and let it ride and go for the long haul on this. And the last one here, now this one here is in pieces. It looks like somebody cut it up to use some of the papers in here. This is an advertisement that shows various types of cigarette rolling paper labels that were made by this company. Now, I've never seen anything like this, honestly. Some of these, the cigarette paper designs in here, I can't find a copy of them in any of the tobacco price guides. I put these 5 pieces of separated paper up for 95. We took $75 within an hour of it going up. It could have been worth more. Who knows? Who knows? Could I have let it set past this guy up and then not sold it for months and then only ended up selling it for 20? Yeah. You just got to take and see what you got into it. I got almost nothing into this. It was bought in a huge lot. I didn't even know at the time that these all were together until I started reading the back and then comparing them. And then I actually put these pieces together as a lot after I determined that yes, it was a booklet advertising cigarette rolling paper. The person who bought these, if I'm not mistaken, writes books or does articles on these, and he'll probably use these as specific examples for that. And just this piece alone here I thought was very interesting. This would have sold on its own for a decent price just because it's a very attractive card. So, $75 for something like this. Kenny Brothers items in general don't sell for very high. So this is right in the top, say maybe 15 or 20 items by Kenny Brothers that sold in this price range of items like this. So, that's pretty darn good across the board of everything that's sold on eBay to be in the top 10, 15, 20 of any item. But anyway, that's what we have for you today. Again, it's just a random selection. It's a small percentage of what we sold. We sold it across this one account that we share. We do have 2 anchor stores and then a third store that we do run sales in as well too. But that's what we have. Hopefully that gives you some ideas. Well, there you have it. That's some of what we sold. Again, that's just a random pull here of some items. Gives you some ideas. I've got more videos coming out. And again, if you haven't watched before, I do a live show every Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. But again, that's what I have for you today. Don, the Auction Professor. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button below. You can also hit the bell icon up top to be notified when we post new videos or go live. Subscribe and tell a friend.